Good morning, everybody. We're going to extend our crusher fine path that we have here all the way to my flower garden today. It's a cloudy day, so it's a perfect day temperature-wise to be working outside. So I'll just give you a little bit of a look at what this gravel path looks like. You can see it is actually, like I said, called crusher fine. It's a very fine, it's not pebbles, but we did this quite a while ago. And so we have decided that we will extend it. Currently, you can see it curves over here and goes to other parts of our garden. So here's the portion we are going to add. And you can see underneath our current gravel that we have in our entire backyard, and if you're questioning why we have so much gravel, we do live in the high desert, which is extremely arid, and it is not very water-wise to have a lawn. So when we did this many years ago, we put in gravel, but underneath that gravel, so that we wouldn't have a weed problem, we put in this heavy tarp that you see here. So we had dug up some of this. So some of it's pretty old, so it's ripped a little bit, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is put a landscape fabric underneath that before we put this red crusher fine on top of it. And our paths have been about 22 inches wide, so we'll make sure this one looks the same as the others. And let me walk over there. You can see that this will take us right to our flower garden. And of course my husband's rain gauge that he reports as a Cocoa Ross reporter of any precipitation. That gives you an idea of what we will be working on today. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, you can see the edge of the previous path, and that's the landscape fabric that we used, and we will tuck the new landscape fabric for the new path underneath that. So tell me again why we use the landscape fabric.
We use that so that this fine dirt that comes in the crusher fines does not go onto the plastic tarp and wash into our French drains and clog them up. This will catch this fine dust and not allow it to be carried off by the rain.
And it also holds the crusher fine, that separate rock, in place so it doesn't move into the bigger gravel as much. So this is how we give it the edge, so that we turn up, kind of make a lip of the landscape fabric. Again, another way to hold the crusher fine path in its own contained section. Alright, so now we're just going to roll the tarp out and start filling in. So we have a pile of this Crusher Fine red rock, and we dug into it and put it into buckets so it'd be easy to pour. You can see it's pretty dusty, but that actually, after we're done, we will water it down, and that dust will help to firm up the path and set it really well. And yes, we are pretty meticulous about this, but it makes it look really good in the end and last for a long time. So you'll notice right now we are making it level with the larger rock, but after we get this whole stretch done, we will then come back and build it up. That's one of the lessons we learned when we did this first path, that if you keep it the level of the other rock will over time infiltrate into your path and won't look as good, and you'll be spending all your time picking out rocks. So building it up after we're done has definitely made a huge difference. Now notice again how we pulled up the sides of the landscape fabric to make a lip to keep the rock contained. As you can see, it's a new day. We did a little bit yesterday and going and digging up the rock, the Crusher Fine, and it got just too hot, so here we are the next morning. Unfortunately, not a cloudy day, pretty blue sky, but we started early, or earlier. Just to explain a little bit more about this fabric liner, the landscape fabric that we put down before we put the Crusher Fine down. So you want to measure how wide you want your path to be, and then add a couple more inches so that you'll have about an inch extra on each side to make this lip. Okay, so one thing to note is you don't have to have one long piece for your entire path. You can do this in sections. Sometimes it's easier to do that. Just don't do your sections too short, but when you start the next section, you want to make sure that the landscape fabric on the new section is under the one that you just finished. The other good part of using different sections of the landscape fabric is when you want to make a curve, you can easily do that with a separate piece. You don't want to have one long piece to make curves. You'll notice he's using his trowel to hold down the edges as he pours the Crusher Fine on top of the joint where the two pieces connect. That way there's not rock going underneath that edge.
In this area we have a French drain. Some of the gravel that we have in our backyard is pretty jagged, which is very easy to puncture through this soft, breathable fabric. So in this area where the French drain is, I'm going to put an extra piece just to add that little bit of protection before we roll out the rest of the fabric tarp.
So now it's just a matter of leveling it out. And then, as I said earlier, once we get this packed down, which when this is all leveled out, we will wet it down so that it will set in the hot sun before we start to build it up. So more than likely, we won't be building it up until tomorrow. Hi, Mickey. Mickey likes to be around me, so he wants to come outside and hang with us, but he knows he can't. We have decided to stop for the day before we finish that final piece that connects the path to the flower garden. And so now we are watering or wetting down the path. And as I was saying, it has a lot of dust in it, and that dust helps to solidify the path. It's almost like concrete. It really does set hard. So we are misting the path so it doesn't flood in areas or make indentations. But we are going to wet it pretty well because it needs to soak all the way down to the bottom. And then we will just let it set and bake in the hot sun for several days. We are now back to finish the final section of the path, and as you can see, it is not just a straight section. We wanted it to have a little artistic flair to it, so we'll get busy on that section. Okay, so one thing to note that's different in the seam right here is this one is now overlapping the previous one, and that's simply because this slopes downward towards the French drain. So just like a shingle would work, you would lay it on top so that the water runs over it and down to the French drain. Alright, so it's several days later, and we are finally doing the final step. So he's going to pour more because we've got to build the pathway up. So we've got it, as you can see, it's level right now, but if we leave it this way, it will be the rocks will actually encroach into the path, the finer crush path, so we don't want to do that. So now it just gets built up. Okay, so the path is now done. We have built it up. I don't know if you can see from here the angle. So it's not flat and flush with this rock anymore. And I've actually watered it down so it can bake in the sun. And there you go. That's what it looks like. So let me back up here and give you a different view. I hope this video has been very informative for you. If so, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks!